broadly covering these three aspects: overview of invoice, legal issues, and the technical issues. Before I start this session, I would like to just to get a clarity. Is my voice clear, sir?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right. Members, now e-invoice is definitely not new. It's there from quite a long. So everyone would have a fair idea. The only point which I would like to mention about the e-invoice is it is not different from the way if someone is not understood or been thinking that okay, it is going to be something changing the world or something changing. First of all, we need to understand accounting is a metric. In accounts, in your data entry, both sales, purchase, journal, whatever be the accounting entry which is being done, there are certain parameters that have been fed into the system. And if we have to call more from the tally world, we need to have a debit and a credit for a voucher. The voucher totals should match, and certain other parameters of narration, date, etc. This is basically typically there's a debit and a credit. Now, uh, what differentiates an accountant versus a data entry operator is data entry operator is independent. He is numb to what is being debited or credited. Today, after the big ERPs coming into a place, SAP, Oracle's, Ramco's, or whatnot, including the banking applications, today you will find a lot of accountants in the name of data entry operators. You will find someone in AR, you will find someone in AP, or precisely if someone who is raising an invoice in front of him, there is a screen. He just selects a party, he selects the product that is being sold, and he presses a button. Boom, it's done. So back end, what happened, what got debited, what got credited, liabilities, where it parked, is of absolutely no concern to him, and he doesn't even know what it is. Likewise with AP, there are some open purchase orders. Someone has issued purchase orders. On my screen, when material came, it would show some material something. So today the accounting world is bifurcated into an accountant who has actually a professional degree of the knowledge on accounts versus a so-called data entry operator accountants. Now, eventually we are moving to a digital era. Way back then, when I did my CA, we were into a manual environment. Books of accounts used to be in a manual, and I'm not sure how many of you have experienced that. Way back then, the biggest achievement in finalization of accounts is if you can tally your trial balance, then it's as good the audit is done. It's like that's the kind of experience you get, and give it to the typist who prepares. But today everything is digital, or I would say 99% it is digital. It's very difficult for someone to understand and do something in a manual way. And if you ask someone to really do some work, he would say that, okay, give me a system. Half of us will feel that I do not have any work if I do not have a system. And of that 50% of the time, if you find that there is no internet in your system, then boom, you are like handicapped. And today even WhatsApp also, from mobile it went to the browser, so there's a WhatsApp web, so all the windows would be open, there's a LinkedIn or whatnot. So we need internet being available. Likewise, even departments have upgraded. Earlier, if you remember income tax filing, it used to be this much booklet, and most of the time all that we used to do is most of the schedules are not applicable, a big NA nil not applicable, and you cannot imagine a CA office working without a whitener, and the statement computation used to be prepared on a pen and paper. Now today, if you ask someone to prepare a computation, forget Excel. They need a software like Winman, Serral, Computax, whatever be the software. Without that software, nothing can happen. Even governments have automated. So in the first phase, they were taking the documents electronically. Phase two, whatever the document which collected, they had EDP systems. They were punching and doing the data entry in the EDP systems. In the phase three, they have, if you remember, way back in 2008 onwards, the department started going electronic and asking us to file the returns in an electronic format, wherein the accountants have now more ill qualified and system was doing most of the data entry work or the processing job. In fact, it is good. System has to do system job and we have to do our job. Now, what is happening with that moving online here in India? If we have to say globally, in the ease of doing business with more and more automation, we have been scaling up and scaling up with a faster pace, saying that okay, if you are in India, compliances are going to be easy and it's good in doing ease of business. In fact, though it was looking exaggerating statement when the finance ministry made a statement around 6,000 more compliances going to be eased, either it would be simplified or weeded out to a small SME kind. Now that is the era where we are entering into. With the e-invoice coming in, when a survey was done by one of the big four, they have made this statement, and this was done in the countries where some of the countries where implementation happened. It's not that e-invoice is new in the world. It is, we just adopted it. It's there in the Western, and they actually started with a B2G, from a business to a government document. They wanted an electronic format, how we were filing our GST R1 or 3V, whatever, in an electronic form, a written. Even the documents, they standardized and made it into electronic mode. Now, when they said they have, after implementation, when they have made an analysis, according to them, the cost of compliance or a transaction processing after the e-invoice would be 96%. If today my accounting cost is say 100 rupees for a voucher, post e-invoice, they said it would be 4 rupees. Now, it might look very exaggerating statement, like when a new car gets launched, 25 kilometers per liter, the thing. But when the rubber hits the road, you will find only some 11, 12, whatever the thing. But one thing I would like to impress upon the members, even though 96% cost saving is very exaggerating statement, if you discount it, even if there is a 70% cost saving, it's a substantial cost saving. And year on year, when there is a survey that's globally being conducted on the challenges or the risks that the future of the profession or the businesses or the employment changes that happens, and the risk involved for a finance professional is high. And this is not just a statement. Consistently from last 3 years, wherever the artificial intelligence progression is happening, there is a job reduction or the dependency reduction on the finance professionals. Now, whenever there is a cost saving, people definitely, large corporates would adopt technology. And I'm sure if you talk to any big corporates who have already implemented e-invoice, they would be experiencing it. They just need to tangibly measure that. And along with the cost, the time gets saved by 80%. How? Because it brings in efficiency 15 times more. That's what the survey results say. After this, what happens? It so would happen that the information is all around. So it would be easy for the assessing officer for the assessments. You wouldn't be surprised. Say 3 years from now, when there is a full scale implementation that happens, an officer can walk into the premises of the taxpayer and say, against this HSN 8603, you should be holding so much stock. He hasn't even looked at any of your records, nothing. Just by that, he just made a statement that you should be having so much stock. Now, how is it possible? That is what today the machines are going to do computation and are going to say, right? So on this note, I would like to begin the session on e-invoice, giving you more about what the e-invoice is. And feel free to put questions wherever you have, because technically we have 2 hour session. This is definitely 1 hour is a sufficient thing, but definitely we have sufficient time to discuss what are all the practical issues if you are facing or a client is facing. Okay. Now, when we talk about e-invoicing, e-invoicing is a standard for invoicing, like how you have AS2 for valuation of inventory, AS9 for revenue recognition. Likewise, for every activity in accounts, there is a standard. But if you have to issue an invoice, do we have a standard in India? Like, do an accounting book, which any accounting book, does it talk that the contents of the invoice should be this, or this is the data for invoice? Answer is no. Everyone would give some approximate data or information that is required. Likewise, even if you see in GST, Rule 46, which says that the expected contents, they have 17 points with 7 other provisos listed. They would only say, this is what I expect. Or if you go to weights and measurement, they would say that, okay, whatever the quantity you are printing should be having on the product, and product should talk about gross weight, net weight, whatever. Or drug control act might say that, okay, I should have the expiry and the various things. So each one will have a different requirement under the law, but there is no single document today, even including ICA or anyone who has issued, saying that this should be invoice contents. If you're talking about invoice means this should be there. Likewise, let's take an accounting softwares. If a client, if someone, and financial world is a very dynamic, you will find a lot of new people entering into the market saying that, okay, like recently Tally celebrated with 20 million users. So definitely there is an opportunity. Why don't we build an online accounting software, and it will solve a lot of problems which Tally could not solve. Or the SAP are very costly. Let's just build a cloud platform. There are a lot of people who enter into the market and perish slowly after 3 years, 5 years, and someone convert themselves into industry specific and whatnot. But if any of them approach you saying that, okay, look, I am preparing, I am a tech guy, I don't understand the finance domain. Can you tell me what should be the contents of an ERP? How should I design the database? What should be the schema? Where are the unique values to be placed? Or leave all the technical question, a simple question. Okay, finally, after selling, what should be in the invoice to be printed? You can't refer any book. All that you will do, okay, here is what I'm using say QuickBooks, I'm using Zoho, I'm using Tally, I'm using some accounting software. Let me do one data entry, print an invoice. Okay, match this, tick. Okay, if you have these many fields in the invoice, there you're good to go. Your accounting software will be approved. So actually, there is no standard for invoicing in India. With e-invoicing coming in, it is going to become a standardized invoice, and we call it as electronic invoice. There's a difference between a digital invoice and an electronic invoice. All of us today, what we have is a digital document. It might be an invoice which is coming in an XML, PDF, Word, whatever, but it is just a digital document. Can I compare or read a document from SAP to Tally? Forget that. In your organization, if there is a material management, there is a software, and there is a POS for billing and back-end accounting, some other software. Will the data seamlessly get integrated? Answer is no. One has to again redesign, understand the database schema of both, because they are not electronic documents. They are all digital documents. Now, you might have this confusion. What is this electronic and a digital document? I'll give one simple example. Look at this. This is how beautifully GST also explained about the e-invoicing. Imagine you're going on a holiday. Definitely not in the near future of 1 year, this pandemic. But if you are traveling to, say, Singapore, Malaysia, or London, East Side, whatever, every place you move, you have your mobile and you have a charger, but your mobile charger wouldn't fit there. Why? Because what you are carrying is a type D. What they might have is a flat pin which is type G, or two pin type F, whatever. A different types of the pins which the each country has. Now you may curse saying that why can't they globally put only one type of the thing? Now they have adopted according to their need, like how we have is AS, Ind AS, IFRS. Everyone has adopted according to their need, and it is becoming more and more adoptable standards. All that you will find with the international travelers is that one white color adapter where they plug in, and they plug in and they ensure that the data is the power is supplied. The best thing, if you can, what you can do is, if you do not want to carry it, you cut that wire, take those two wires and just plug in. Yeah, that is the best thing, because what you want is the power to flow. They are just an adapter, a medium. Likewise, the invoice which you are seeing, there is an underlying data which needs to go to a different software. Now, after the implementation of e-invoice, this is going to be a standardized. What does that mean? An e-invoice coming out from Tally, SAP, Oracle, Zoho, whatever be the application, it is going to be the same document, same language, which means it makes interoperability. That is the advantage or the use of standardization and codifying the whole of the thing. And that's where GSTN has taken this ownership of e-invoice, where in the parliament, when they said that they want to bring the concept of e-invoicing, and they did not find anyone other than GSTN, and GSTN beautifully included this concept into the GST law, though which was never envisaged in the originally. Even today, if you do a search in the GST book on e-invoice, you will not find a single word called e-invoice, neither in the notification circulars or in the act. So they have just adopted this concept. Now, there are some myths on e-invoice. Now, the myths are, firstly, people think that, okay, after the e-invoice, government will give a portal, so one has to do a data entry in that portal. Or I have to forego my output of the invoice, government will give me a format, I have to use that format. And this is only for the purpose of GST. Again, it cannot be used anywhere. So it is adding to additional compliance burden. The various statements by many. But actually, the objective of the e-invoice is for a better taxpayer services and reduce tax evasion, increase the efficiency of the tax administration. It intend to cover all the aspects, entire socio-economy system of the GSTN, it intend to cover. Even though I wouldn't specifically attribute the growth in revenue to e-invoice, but if you notice, ever since e-invoice is implemented, the revenue of the GST collections is above 1 lakh crores. Earlier, what is the collection of GST? We used to say, yeah, anything between 95 to 1 lakh. But now it is breached. It is above 105. That is the collection that's happening because of the e-invoice that's been implemented. Now let's understand what is the journey of this e-invoice, and what are the legal provisions and what one should do. To begin with, on the journey of e-invoice, the e-invoice started with the 1st October 2020, wherein more than 500 crore turnover companies have gone live. Notification 61 by 2020. The phase 2 came in 1st January of this financial year, more than 100 crore companies have gone live, saying that they have to do e-invoice. And when we say 100 crore, whatever it is, we are talking about aggregate turnover. Phase 3 started from this financial year, April, 1st April 2021, where the turnover is more than 50 crores by virtue of notification 5/21, they went live. Now, the next notification, we do not know. So maybe it would be above 5 crores, above 10 crores, above 25 crores. But the objective is, in a phased manner, above 5 crore SSCs, they intend to bring or cover under e-invoice system. And whenever they talked about this turnover, it is not the turnover in the previous financial year, it is turnover in any of the preceding financial years. The 2 subsection 6, the aggregate turnover definitions is applicable. So which means you have to look not GSTN wise, it has to be a PAN specific. And again, when we say PAN specific, it is not accounting or income tax turnover, it is a GST turnover, which is including inter-branch stock transfers, also interstate or inter-GST and stock transfers also should be included. So, for example, in the third phase, which went live from this financial year, 1st April, if I have to say 50 crores, in the year 17-18, starting from 1st July 2017 to March 18, if your turnover was 60 crores, and subsequently it was only sub for 50 crores, should I have to do e-invoicing? The answer is yes. The answer is yes, because in any of the preceding financial years, the turnover has crossed 50 crores. So e-invoicing is applicable. That is what one has to be careful about in terms of implementation. Otherwise, then we would end up becoming non-compliant. Let me look at what does that mean and what is the power for this e-invoice coming from. E-invoice has been the concept or the power has been drawn from Rule 48. We know Rule 46, the contents of the invoice, and Rule 48 as the invoice, the mode of issuing invoice. Now, if an invoice has to be issued, we say that original has to be with the buyer, duplicate has to be with the transporter, triplicate copy which should be the self. In the same rule, the government said in setting 48 sub rule 4, saying that if e-invoice is applicable, then you should be issuing INV1. It doesn't specifically say e-invoice is applicable, but a class of taxpayers, notified taxpayers, wherever it is applicable, they should issue INV1. Now, INV1 was originally envisaged in the GST law for integrating e-way bill and having a single document. Now that has been used for e-invoice. Next, they also went ahead and said that if you are issuing in any other manner other than the specified manner, then it is not a valid document. So if e-invoice is applicable to you and you are not issuing e-invoice, then you have to ensure that the compliance of the law is not met. Given that it is electronic, you don't need to have a multiple copies of the document. Multiple copies need not be issued. So this is the genesis of the e-invoice, notification 68/2019. And where should the e-invoice to be generated? It is on the common portal. The common portal is 69/2019. They have said that we are opening 10 different portals and you can use the data, you can generate the invoice out of any of these 10 portals. As of now, there's only one portal that is opened, e-invoice1.gst.gov.in. We call them as IRPs. So these are the third-party agencies. So e-invoice is not handled by GSTN or processed by GSTN. It is handled by a third parties. So the first third party is the NIC. And I'm sure very soon they have called tenders in the roughly 6 months back. So the other portals might be up. What should be the content that should be sent? What should be the format? The format is notified in 60/2020. So that we call it as a schema. So the fields in the e-invoice INV01 is mentioned there. Now, what are the documents covered for e-invoice? What you can see in the green color are applicable for e-invoice. What you are seeing on the below different color, e-invoice is not applicable. In fact, this document talk says all about the coverage of e-invoice. E-invoice is applicable for a tax invoice, credit note, and a debit note. It is not applicable for bill of supply, delivery challan, or an ISD invoice. That is document type. And the transaction type, it has to be a B2B. When I say B2B, it would include B2G also. It would include B2G also. So tax invoice issued to a registered person. But if a tax invoice is issued to an unregistered person, if you have a tax invoice which is issued to an unregistered person, then the e-invoice is not applicable. Then the e-invoice is not applicable. So e-invoice is applicable when a tax invoice is issued to a registered person only. Now, not necessary that every document issued to a registered person it is applicable. I may sell an exempted product to a registered person. Now, if an exempted product is sold, instead of issuing a tax invoice, I will issue a bill of supply. Even in this scenario, even though you are making a supply to a registered person, e-invoice is not applicable. And notification 70/2020 has extended the scope from B2B. They have also extended the scope for export of goods and services. This is the coverage of the e-invoice. Any queries or any doubts to anyone so far? Feel free to put your questions in the chat. So just to sum up, it's applicable only to B2B outward tax invoice. A very important thing, both forward and reverse charge. I am a security agency. My services are under reverse charge. I'm a partnership firm. I'm making security services to a corporate. I am not a tour operator, but I give the hiring of vehicle. All these activities which I am doing, I did not pay tax. It is the recipient who pays the tax. Even though the recipient is paying the tax, I am liable to do e-invoice. So e-invoice is applicable for all your outward supply. In the earlier slide, when I said it is not applicable for reverse charge, I'm talking about self-tax invoice. Again, the common issue that I notice is people ignore doing e-invoice for the outward reverse charge. That is something which is generally not done. Next, export with pay or without pay. So e-invoice is applicable even for the transactions of export with pay or without pay. Now, the issue people generally face here is while I am making an export, the person who is there outside India is not registered. What is the registration number I have to mention? Don't worry, the schema has given URP for unregistered persons. There is a document type is there, subtype is there. The schema addresses all these fields. But many people do not do an e-invoice for export, which will become a non-compliance in the law. Whether it's with pay or without pay, it doesn't make any difference. But e-invoice has to happen. Next, there is an issue that happens with export is on the value of the transaction. If you notice in your books of accounts, you recognize the revenue as per AS 11. Translation you will be doing on the date of the transaction. Whenever you are issuing the invoice, you will download the whatever is the rate applicable and you will record the transaction in your invoice and you will do the invoice. Goods reach the port. On the shipping bill, customs would adopt a rate as notified by the customs. Shipping bill will have a value, your physical invoice will have a different value. Please note, while filing your GSTR1, if you notice there is a discrepancy between a shipping bill value and your e-invoice value, you have to update that in your GSTR1. This is one common mistake that's happening. And after filing GSTR1, they're realizing that there is a difference in mismatch between the shipping bill value and the GSTR1 value. Because in GSTR1, you have specific column in table 6A asking for shipping bill value. So people do not correct that. What happens? The refunds are struck. If the goods are exported with payment of taxes, the refund is automatic. What do you mean by refund automatic? It is the refund will be processed automatically if the shipping SBN matches with GSTR1, matches with GSTR3B. If these three match, refund is automatic. You don't need to knock anyone's door. Now, unknowingly, this is one big issue that happens. What is the way out? The way out is you wait for the next return filing period. So wait till next month and go to amendment table in table 9, amend your table 6, amend the invoice value. Sometimes, by the way, shipping bill number is optional. When the goods are being exported, when the e-invoice is generated, you do not have the shipping bill number. You do the data entry, you do the e-invoice, automatically the e-invoice will take data to GSTR1. People think that, okay, my taxable value, tax amount has matched, they just submit it. So my shipping bill number is not updated. Various types of errors that are happening because the data is not matched. Now, the biggest challenge is your refund is struck. You have to wait till next tax period. So there's a working capital gap. It's just that either ignorance or I wouldn't say negligence, but yes, one has to be make sure that what is the right process whenever they are implementing any law. Same happens with debit note and a credit note. E-invoice is applicable for debit note and a credit note. Alongside of the tax invoice, credit note and debit note also you have to do e-invoice. There are many people whom I notice that they think that e-invoice is not applicable. They don't do e-invoice for debit note or a credit note. But purely not applicable in case of a B2C, in case of a notified class of people. Who are the notified class of people? There are notified class of people who the government has exempted. We know in Rule 54, owing to various difficulties, they have already exempted a banking, insurance, NBFC companies not to comply with Rule 46 or a goods transport agency. If you see a consignment note which they issue, the more relevance of the document is to see who is consignor, who is consignee, what is the items that have been transported, what is the gross weight, all those information are relevant. The tax related information is less importance. A passenger transportation agency, like if you look at an airline company or a bus ticket, what is more important is boarding point, the where you're embarking, where you're getting down, what is the seat number, all the information are important in the ticket. So the tax invoice is of less relevance or an important. So these are anyhow exempted under Rule 54 for issuing a regular tax invoice. The exemption continued for e-invoice also. And addition to the exempted existing, the exemption is SEZ. SEZ is exempted from generating an e-invoice. So if you are an SEZ, you are not required to do an e-invoice. But however, the hearing the word SEZ, people stop doing invoice. Supply to SEZ e-invoice is applicable. Supply by an SEZ e-invoice is not applicable. This is again a common area where people make a mistake thinking that e-invoice is not applicable to them. Any doubts so far to any of the participants?
By SEZ, you mean SEZ unit as well, right?
Correct. So there's the right point, sir. So we have SEZ developer and SEZ unit. Who is exempt is only an SEZ unit. SEZ developers are very much covered. They have to continue to do e-invoice. The next, people always get confused or get mixed up or overlap with B2C QR code. Reason why I brought this is not an e-invoice. B2C QR code is not an e-invoice. We know after the e-invoice, there is a QR code that comes to the invoice. Even where to do generate a B2C QR code? Is it the same, the government portal? Where is the scheme? All those questions, people, again, lot of queries that I get, that is the e-invoice applicable for this? How to do all those things? If you are making a supply to an unregistered person and your turnover is more than 500 crores, alongside of e-invoice, a B2C QR code is applicable. Basically, this is a requirement emanating from section 31A, wherein the government intends that the supplier should give an option to the recipient for a digital payment, not mandating the recipient to make the payment electronically, but an option to be given to the recipient for making digital payment. How do I give? On the invoice that is printed, like after the invoice, if I am making the payment, please note, after the invoice I'm making the payment, then in the invoice I have to print a dynamic QR code. What is dynamic QR code, or what makes it dynamic? It becomes dynamic if the QR code is a self-explainable. For example, you go out, fill to a fuel station, fill some petrol. You have all this Paytm, phone pay, all this scanning images. You just scan the thing, then it will say that okay, so much fuel station. Then you will fill some amount, right? So here they expect it to be a dynamic, meaning the moment I scan, it should say who is supplier, what is the amount to be paid, what is the invoice number, what is the taxable value, tax amount. All that information should be automatically captured. So I don't need to do any data entry. I just need to say, okay, all done, good to go, make the payment, right? The genesis of this happened from notification 72/2019. Originally, it was envisaged to go live from 1st September, 1st October, alongside of the e-invoice, but later it got deferred to 1st December, further deferred to 1st April. As of now, the timeline for B2C QR code is 1st July. The original notification deferment came from 89/2020. The same thing is being every time being issued for amending the further things. So this is on the applicability of B2C QR code. Any doubts to anyone on B2C QR code?
There are some questions raised in the chat box. If you could address them.
So I'm just looking at the questions. I'll take up those questions at the appropriate times. There's one question which is relevant, is commercial credit note, which is issued after September. Two things I'll talk: a regular credit note issued after September, or a commercial credit note issued before September. Now, we know section 34 of the law prohibits an SSE to issue a credit note, after September. If one has to issue a credit note, it has to be on or before September of the next financial year. After September, I cannot issue a credit note and reduce my tax liability. I only have to issue a commercial credit note. Now, should I need to do e-invoice to it? Answer is no. So, in a simple way to understand and correlate where I can do e-invoice, refer your GSTR1. Wherever you are doing a line-wise data entry, you don't do a line-wise data entry in table 7, B2C small. So B2C section is not required. Table 8, nil exempt non-GST supplies. For these two categories, you don't do a line-wise data entry, so e-invoice is not applicable. So a commercial credit note or a regular credit note issued after September, e-invoice is not required because the supplier cannot reduce his tax liability on account of this invoice. So couple of important aspects, technical aspects about e-invoices registration. Where do I register? Government has given 3 portals. The portal 1 is more for the developers. Someone who is building an application of e-invoice, it is for them to understand what is the schema, how to use it. Then the portal number 2, okay, e-invoice notification has come, it is made applicable to you, so you have to go live. So before going live, you want to test whether you are ready, your ERP is ready, your accounting system is ready for all those aspects. They have given e-invoice 1 trial.nic.in. After you are testing and you have satisfied, you can go live on e-invoicegst.gov.in. Let's look at what are the issues here. The issue here is most of the time, which I notice, is people connect their real system to e-invoice trial, saying that, okay, it's applicable from 1st April. Let me do January, February, March transactions to the trial portal. I'll connect my live data to the trial portal, set up everything, give it to the accountants. Accountants are using, okay, the printouts are coming, everything is there. So they forget to change their connection from trial to the live portal. Contrary, they connect their they connect to the live portal, but they connect on the backup server. Like if I have to take a simple example, say Tally, it's just a data folder. I copy that folder to a different folder called backup and I start working on it. No one knows that is a backup data or the live data. So these are the issues that happen is when they go live. The go live checklist is not designed properly and people make mistakes in go live. There's a question from Vamshi. For the B2C, I have to issue an invoice with QR code. Now the QR code facilitates scan and pay customers. Now, can they choose to pay or not? Is the choice of the recipient, is it true? The answer is yes. Please note, B2C QR code is only facilitating digital payments, not mandating digital payments. Second thing, B2C QR code is required only for the time of collection. If you have already received the money, if I have already received the money, I provided the service and I am issuing the invoice, then the QR code on that invoice is not required. For example, let's take a simple example. I go to, say, Shopper Stop, Big Bazaar. I go to the counter and across the counter, someone is saying that, sir, you have to pay 1,400 rupees. I pay him the cash. In his system, he says 1,500 received, 100 rupees returned, and he prints the invoice. If an invoice is generated post receipt of money, whether it would have come to me, cash, check, whatever, no issue. But on the invoice, it is mentioned there is no amount to due, then you don't need to print a QR code. Because the purpose of the QR code is facilitating the recipient to make the digital payment. So this is what one has to be very clear of. Okay. Alongside, government has given various other tools and utilities for the e-invoice. Every time to time, it updates who are the people who have registered on the portal, and you can just log in on that link. You will see some 1 lakh, 2 lakh SSCs who have registered for e-invoice. They are generating e-invoice. People get confused saying that the government has published list of the people e-invoice is applicable. Answer is no. It is only list of people generating e-invoice currently. It means for someone it might be applicable, or not applicable, it doesn't indicate. But whether an e-invoice is enabled for a person or not, you can click on the second link and enter the GSTN ID of your supplier and check whether your supplier is obligated to do e-invoice or not. Is he doing it or not? You can check on that. Alongside, they have given multiple utilities. One, to generate an e-invoice, or if you have got a generated e-invoice, an app to read that QR code, or instead of the printout, they have given you the soft copy of e-invoice. You can load it into one tool to say whether it is correct or not, what are the documents in it. All that have been given by way of various tools by the government. So what is the process of e-invoice? Let me explain you the overview. Pick an accounting system, let's say Tally. So through an ASP or a GSP, the data travels to the IRP portal. IRP does a basic validation, D and deduplicacy check. You cannot send the same invoice number multiple times. And if everything is valid, it returns back to the system a digitally signed JSON and a QR code information embedded in it. So IRP is returning it back to the supplier. As it is returning back to the supplier, whatever is the agreed upon SLS with a time interval, it sends this data to the GSTN portal. So it sends what? All the data of GSTR. It updates the GSTR1. Alongside of it, you as a supplier, you want to do e-invoice along with e-way bill. So it connects to the e-way bill system and generates an e-way bill also. So the IRP portal connects to the GSTN portal, updates the GSTR1, connects to the NIC portal of the e-way bill and generates an e-way bill. Now that is from the supplier side. And as it is updating from the buyer side, if you look at it on a near real-time basis, the data is available in his GSTR2A. Now, this is the primary thing under the GST law is invoice matching. And this is what the preamble, or they have said that why the introduction of the e-invoice or GST is seamless input tax credit. Now, every time we notice that the biggest thing an accountant always do is, okay, I have so much credit, how much credit I can take during the month. Books will show some 23 lakhs ITC, but I go to the portal, it will show 18 lakhs. So every time we end up sitting doing this matching, then you will notice that, okay, no, that person is a quarterly payer, or that person has shut the business. Okay, the accountant has filed the GSTR1 after 11th, so it will be available in next month to be all these reconciliations, everything is there. So back of the mind of the customer, the buyer, the recipient is, unless it is visible in my 2B, my input tax credit is not intact. This is what is being addressed by the portal, saying that let after the invoice data is visible on a near real-time basis. Now, it will also put check. Now, I as a recipient, if I have received the material, purchases have been accounted, I cannot fudge my sales. So I necessarily have to show that. Likewise, I as a supplier, if the data is visible on the government portal or somewhere later, I cannot just like that tear that invoice. So I'm accountable for it. So this is one reason. I'll not say this is the reason for increase in or augmentation of more revenue to the government, but definitely after the implementation of e-invoice, the revenue to the government has increased substantially. So how do one generate an e-invoice on the IRP portal? Government has given a direct connection to the large taxpayer, more than 500 crores they have given. They have given a facility to generate it offline, upload a JSON. The next they are working currently is on an SMS and a mobile app. Very soon they are going to launch that. They have given an Excel utility offline, GEPP, generation and printing of the e-invoice. They have given a GEPP tool. Or if you have a software, you can do a data entry through that software. They have given multiple Excels, 5 different formats of the Excels they have given. Or the biggest mode of current e-invoicing in India is through an API from an ASPs. And the standard ERPs like Tally and others, they have a direct connection. So there is a direct API route, ERP route, offline JSON upload. So you can choose any of these modes, connect to the government portal and generate the e-invoice. What happens the business or the life after the e-invoice? It's going to become a simpler filing process. Data of e-invoice is data of e-invoice is traveling to the GSTR1. So from GSTR1, it is updated into the GSTR2B of the recipient. Now we know both 1 and 2B is auto-filled to GSTR3B. So 3B is automated. So from the user perspective, he just need to deposit the tax. So payment of taxes offset is automatic. So you just need to click a button for filing the return. If like in a hypothetical, okay, if I do not have a B2C, from my system, every time an invoice is generated, e-invoice is done automatically. So when I file a return every month, it is like next, submit. I don't need to do anything. Technically, hypothetically, I feel that all my suppliers have uploaded and I have done e-invoice to all my sales. So I don't need to do any further changes. So my return filing has become simpler and smoother. Now, what does this mean? It also means the time of that accountant who is doing filing of the returns has come down. So there would be again a pressure on these finance professionals or people who are exclusively dependent on return filing or compliance business. It is going to reduce slowly in times to come. There are some technical terms one needs to understand. There are especially 3 technical terms one needs to understand in the e-invoice. One is IRN, which is called as invoice reference number. This is a 64-digit alphanumeric and unique to invoice. Please note it is only for computers. As a humans, we don't need to do anything. Then why? Because it is a unique document to indicating that, okay, you have not forged any transaction. On a combination of the 4 transactions, which is GSTN, financial year, document type, and document number. A combination of these 4, the IRN gets generated. So exactly for this 4 information, what you are seeing below is this is the IRN for this 4 information. This is the IRN. Now, will you remember? You can't remember. Can you do a data entry? Impossible. It's like error is human. If we don't make mistakes, then we will become robots. So if I type this, where can I may type 5 as yes, 0 as O, 8 as 3 or B, whatever. Some errors would creep in. So it is just for the systems to ensure that you are complied with that. After obtaining this only, you should issue the e-invoice. Second technical term is IRP, invoice registration portal, or alternatively I call it as a reporting portal, because you just need to report the invoices there. What does this guy do? He gives an acknowledgement of a document which comes to him and gives you back. So every time an invoice is generated, the taxpayer has to upload a JSON file to the portal. Now they will do necessary validations and send back a digitally signed QR code. Why digitally signed QR code? Just to authenticate that this is a traffic is genuine and no one has intercepted in between. So you need to have the knowledge of encryption and decryption to read or consume or use this data. This IRP is responsible for updating in his e-invoice records, e-way bill portal, and the common portal. Couple of things about IRP. As I said, there is only one IRP, which is first IRP run by NIC. He only verifies the acknowledgement and verifies the document and issues the acknowledgement. When I say verify, he is not going to check. For example, a computer was sold at 1 crore rupees. Basically, the value was 1 lakh. The dot got missed out. So 1 lakh became 1 crore. IRP is not going to question that, okay, you are issuing an invoice erroneously for 1 crore. He is not going to do that. Second, he is not going to verify HSN for the computer, let's say, is 8305. You are issuing as 9954 by mistake. He is not going to say that, okay, you have entered a wrong HSN. Rate of tax for computer is 18%, you chose 12%. IRP is not going to check that. So IRP you can equate with the a security guard at the entrance of the factory guard who makes an entry of material coming in and going out. He is not going to do a detailed data entry like an accountant. So that is why the response of the IRP is in nanoseconds. If I have to give in a human understanding language, the response comes with a blink of an eye. That's the time at which you close your eye and open. That's the time it takes for him to record and send it back to you. So it is not a compliance overburden. So many people, when the e-invoice went live, they said that, okay, I am Metro Cash and Carry. Customer is standing in front of me. How can I do it? So I can't wait the system downtime. Or I am into hospitality industry. So we have an SLA saying that I should not make a customer stand in front of the counter beyond 2 minutes. All these issues came up and these were beautifully addressed by NIC. So what should you do? You obtain the data from the IRP, which is like something like this. It says acknowledgement number, acknowledge date, IRN, signed invoice, signed QR code, all that it will be issuing. If the status, if it is valid, it comes with a status 1. Error, it comes with a status 0. If it is active, it will say active. If it is cancelled, it will say CNM. That's how it will issue. If I have to show really what it is giving you, this is what it is giving you in a JSON file, in a hash. It gives you acknowledgement number, date, IRN, the signed invoice, signed QR code. If you ask for an e-waybill, it will give you that. Questions that people generally ask is, what if there is a response failure? So I submitted, I submitted it, but I did not get any of the information response back. What should I do? So it's clear. So you generate it once again, and there are tools to retrieve whatever is being filed. So if there is an error, downtime, packet loss. So I have submitted, but by the time it is returning, some packets lost and there is an error coming in. So there is a method to restore it. Should I store all this in my database? Answer is yes. Does it listed in 35 section 35 maintenance of books of accounts? Though it is not specifically mentioned, you as a supplier, you have an obligation to prove that you have done the e-invoice. So you have to store this data. If a proper officer comes to you and asks you saying that, okay, you have to do e-invoice, have you done it? You have to establish that I have done it. So this should be available. So most of the people, again, common question that comes is, what is that I should store in my database? Yes, everything has to be stored in your database. So the signed invoice, whichever I mentioned here, the signed invoice, EY, HBG, whatever, it looks like this, whatever you can see, this EY, whatever. This is how the signed invoice comes. What you should do after you obtain, you should issue the invoice with a QR code. You should print the invoice with a QR code. So this brings to the understanding of the third point. What is this QR code? QR code is the high level parameters of an invoice. QR code is, we call it as a quick reference code, which contains a large set of information, is condensed and put it into QR code. Now, please note, QR code do not have the entire invoice content. What you will find in the QR code is GST of the supplier and recipient, the invoice number, the date, invoice value, the number of line items, the HSN of the highest value. These are the only information that will be available in the QR code. QR code is not going to have all the information. Whether you have 1 line or 100 lines in the invoice, the content of the QR code is going to be the same. It is not going to become bulky because there you have a larger invoice, or it is not going to become a very sleek because you have 1 or 2 lines invoice. Roughly it has 1,000 characters. So when you scan the QR code, you will basically find the buyer details. This is actually a real QR code. So when you scan it using the tool given by the government, you will find this information. If you are scanning it using your mobile camera, like you have a phone, you open the camera and you try to scan this, what you will be getting is a junk like this, because it is an encrypted one. If you want to get the content of it in a beautiful way or understanding way, the government has given an utility. You have to log in there, enter your mobile number, the app gets downloaded onto your phone. Using that app, when you scan it, you will get a proper data. Let's see if there are any questions. Okay. Okay. I'm sure most of your questions would be answered here. The first and foremost is, how do I print the e-invoice? It is some JSON file, I don't understand. You don't need to do anything. You continue your normal way of printout. You print the QR code in it, that's sufficient. How do I send the e-invoice? Government is not going to facilitate the mailing services to the recipient or anyone. Supplier has sent an invoice, the IRP will be sending it back. You have to do it on yourself. Is there a time within which I have to do a particular transaction? There is no specific time. For example, today we are on 8th May, Saturday. I can generate an e-invoice dated 1st May today. Why there is so much delay? The answer is, I have an approval process in the organization. I am a data entry guy. I did a data entry. My manager has to approve and check everything is correct. Only then it gets saved. Till then it will be sitting as a draft. My manager approved it only today. So invoice has been finalized today. I will do e-invoice today. Permitted. No problem. But it has to be generated on or before movement of the goods. Before the goods are moving, the e-invoice has to be generated. What should the printout contain? Both IRN, QR code, acknowledgement number, all the information that is coming back. Like if you see the information that comes back, is acknowledgement number, acknowledgement date, IRN, the signed invoice, QR code. All this is what the response that comes back from the IRP. Should all this information be there in the invoice? The answer is no. In the invoice, if you just have this QR code, it is sufficient, because the QR code has the embedded the invoice into it. So if you have the QR code, that is sufficient. Now, do I need to issue the document, the PDF which is with the QR code? Should I again apply a digital signature on the invoice? Answer is yes. There hasn't been any change in Rule 46. If you are printing it, signing it, you have to manually sign it. If you are giving it electronically, you have to apply digital signature to that PDF document and give. Just because there is a QR code doesn't make it that it is a legitimate document. So to enforce in the law, you still need to have that signature being done. What are the details of the e-invoice we save in ERP? In my view, anything that comes back from your IRP has to be saved in your ERP. I am unable to get the e-invoice because of the technical reasons. Like my system is done. I got hacked. In fact, yesterday, some of my mail server, something went wrong. So there are spam mails went out from my email. There was a sudden downtime. Or I do line sales. I go to different outlets and do it. And the handheld device which I'm doing failed. What to do when those technical reasons that happen? Though no specific answer given, but I would say in the next best possible real time, please do the e-invoice. So a post facto the transaction is conducted, e-invoice can be done. So that means, can I send a old invoice to IRP beyond 24, 48, whatever these are? Answer is yes, you can do it. And in the earlier slide about IRP, I have mentioned IRP is going to hold the data only for 24 hours. After that, he is going to send it to GSTR portal and he is going to purge the documents which he is having. So if you have to cancel a document, you have to cancel within that window of 24 hours. What if I have generated it by mistake and I did not cancel it? No problem. You lost your time limit to cancel it IRP. Data traveled to GSTR1. Log into GSTN portal, open your GSTR1, select that record and delete it. Can I delete it? Yes. Till you file your GSTR1, your outward supply is yours. You have a choice to choose what is your outward supply. You have a choice to choose. So you can actually do that. There is no restriction on that aspect. So if you have generated it by mistake, you have to have sufficient proof why you are cancelling on the GSTN portal and not the IRP portal. These are the issues relating to the subject. I haven't got into these are the legal issues. I did not come to the technical issues of the e-invoice. So let me see if there are any questions which are not answered till this point. I will take that, then go into the technical issues. Okay, question from VN Dubey. Whether any extension given by CBSE for extending e-invoice for small SSCs of 5 crore beyond? For 5 crore beyond, right now there is no notification for applicability of e-invoice. Whenever it comes, we will have to wait and see. Question from Neeraj. By when should an invoice to be reported on e-invoice portal? Say invoice dated April 30th. Latest when we can report it on the e-invoice portal? I would say an invoice dated 30th April, latest you report it 1 day prior to filing of your GSTR1, because your data to travel to GSTR1. If say you are filing your GSTR1 on May 8th, which is today, by yesterday May 7th, please do all your e-invoice. Data will get posted to GSTN portal. You filed your April GSTR1 and after filing you are doing the e-invoice. Possible? Possible. But please note, even though it is possible, you have to make sure that you do manual update to the GSTN portal, GSTR1. And this data will not be traveled to the subsequent month GSTR1. So you have to take care of it by yourself. Question from Alok Agarwalji is, do we need to generate e-invoice for purchase return? In case of a purchase return, there is no procedure given in the law. What is the procedure given is only for sales return. So when I am returning my purchases, it is like for the other person, it is the sales coming back. So he has to issue a credit note. So for credit note, e-invoice is required. Question from Radhika ma'am. E-invoice should be saved in the ERP. However, the volume is low. The SSC is using a JSON facility to generate and issue the invoice. Post generation of e-invoice, it is only saved and sent to the client, but there is no exchange of tax invoice in the ERP. Is there any issue that we foresee? The only issue that I foresee is if you cannot correlate and establish one-to-one the QR code IRN details are in another file, which is an Excel, and the ERP has some data. Tomorrow, when there is an audit, someone is asking you to give the e-invoice for this, you have to find and do a search of that Excel. If that Excel is missing, you will have an issue. Otherwise, everything is okay. Then on the e-way bill related. So I'm only right now touching legal issues, technical issues I'll come in a while. On the e-way bill related, e-way bill is governed by Rule 138. Let me just see if I missed some more questions. Okay, we have answered all the questions.
Mr. Venugopal, I had one question.
Yes, sir.
Regarding services, the time allowed is 30 days from the rendering of service for raising an invoice.
Correct.
Now, e-invoice is the only invoice which is now recognized for a party having more than 100 crores turnover. So that 30 days limit will apply to such a scenario, right? And
Correct.
what I mean is e-invoice is the only invoice now recognized under as tax invoice. So the
Correct.
issued tax invoice, 30 days time limit will apply, right?
No, the point one should be careful here is people again misconstrue is 30 days not from the issuing of the physical invoice, 30 days from the date of provision of the service. So now there is no concept of any invoice other than e-invoice. So the e-invoice has to be done 30 days from the time of provision of the service. Now, when we say 30 days, I am not doing a backdated 30 days invoice. For example, on 8th May, I am not issuing an 8th April invoice saying that I have 30 days limit. I completed my service on 8th April. From 8th April or starting 9th April till 8th of the next month, I can issue an invoice. Any date, I can issue an invoice. But it is not expected to be a backdated invoice.
Followed. Thank you.
Okay. On the e-way bill related, the legal issues is firstly, should one have to do e-way bill after the e-invoice also? The answer is yes. E-way bill is governed under Rule 138. E-invoice is governed under Rule 48. Both are two independent. As of now, there is no waiver of e-way bill if e-invoice is done. Maybe in times to come, it will be waived. Can I do e-invoice and e-way bill together? Yes. E-way bill can be generated at the time of IRN generation or after IRN generation. Now, will IRP support e-way bills only for invoice or other documents also? E-way bill can be generated only for invoice. For debit note, credit note, and service invoices, e-way bill is not supported by the IRP portal. So for a debit note and a credit note, you have to do it separately. I send goods to job work. Do I need to do e-invoice? Answer is no. The common question or the common issue that comes here is, I am into say machine repairing services. I got a machine worth 2 lakhs. E-way bill is applicable for the consignment value. Consignment value is the value of the item that is moving, not the value of the supply that is moving. My repair charges is 5,000. Do I need to do e-way bill for that material movement? Answer is yes. 50,000 is irrelevant here of the supply. The value of the material which is moving is more than 50,000. Again, the question comes is, okay, I am generating a job work charges and the machine returning charges. The IRP portal is not allowing to generate an e-way bill. See, you cannot generate an e-way bill for a delivery challan. People try to do the job working as a tax invoice. There are two transactions here. For me doing the machine tooling, it is say 9976, some business support services. I issue a service invoice independently. After doing it, I'm sending the material back. That is a different, I'm not supplying it, I'm just sending the material back. I have to raise a delivery challan as per Rule 55, movement other than supply, and I have to mention it as outward and job work, and I have to send that machine. What is the value that I need to report? Though there is no clarification by NIC or the CVIC, but in the ICI guidance note, since the word used in Rule 138 is the consignment value, please add the job work charges to the existing inward value and send the machine. Can I cancel the e-way bill? E-way bill can be cancelled. Can I cancel the IRN? IRN can also be cancelled. But when you are cancelling an IRN, it is must that e-way bill should be cancelled first. Very important thing, Rule 138A Subrule 2, which was introduced, which states that you don't need to print the e-way bill. Now, printing of e-way bill is no longer required. The QR code which you are currently carrying, the embedded, when that officer scans it using his handheld device, he will be knowing the e-way bill details in it. So no requirement wherever a digital carry of the scan of the QR code is available, e-way bill is not required to be printed. Uh, this I will come. Now, the last part of the legal understanding is the schema. What is a schema? Schema is the defined document using which one generates an e-invoice. Let's understand the schema. Notification 70/2020 has explained the schema. Basically, I am not getting into the full details of the schema. First and foremost, schema has various sections. Imagine your physical invoice, the various boxes. The JSON file is also divided into each of those boxes. We call this as a section. Under the section, you have various information that needs to be reported. There are some mandatory sections, there are some optional sections. Total 133 fields are there in the schema. Sorry, it's not notification 70/60/2020. The updated one has the details. So there are 5 mandatory sections and 11 optional sections. If it is sounding technical, if you look at this is something like an invoice. So you have seller, buyer, document details, line items. All this in red color are mandatory information, and those which are in blue or black, they're optional information. So there are some mandatory sections and optional sections. Now, there is something called cardinality. If you refer to the original printed schema, it starts something with 0 or 1, then ends with 1 and n. It says 0 dot dot 1, 1 dot dot 1, 0 dot dot n, like that. So how to read or how to understand? Anything starting with 0 is optional. Anything starting with 1 is mandatory. In this case, the seller details or buyer details are mandatory. So it would start with 1. The dispatch address is optional. Sometimes it can be there, sometimes it will not be there. So it ends with 0. So dispatch, it ends with, it starts with 0. But the number of addresses that can happen is only 1. So seller details would be 1.1. Dispatch address would be 0.1. Line items. Minimum 1 line should be there. So it will start with 1. But n number of lines can be there. So it is 1.n. My product reference detail, my order number. I can have multiple orders issued against single invoice. So my reference details of the order can be 0.n. So that is how one have to understand the cardinality of the schema. So with this, I have come to the end of the legal side of the aspect, and let's move to technical side of the issues. So how do I generate an invoice? Invoice can be generated, as I said, there are Excel connectors, there are ODBC connectors. The ERPs, the standard ERPs like Tally, SAP, they have prepared a standard format. The ERPs can generate an invoice. E-invoice can be generated in any form. There is no one specific format in which the ERP e-invoice has to be generated. The one of the old initial method was the SFTP. So data is punched into one folder. Your software will read this data, generate an e-invoice and send it back. This used to be one of the common method. What are the issues while you're generating the e-invoice? So let's come to the technical side of it. It's like you understood the law side of it. You understood the do's and don'ts of it. Now you are actually doing the e-invoice. What are the issues you are going to face, or you are actually facing it? So before I go there, let's see if there are any unanswered questions. So far it is clear for everyone. Are there any questions that are still not answered? Okay.
I think we can go ahead. So.
All right. Now, issues while generating the e-invoice. I am using offline utility, like how Radhika madam has asked, that I am using an Excel utility given by the government. For some reason, Excel file got deleted, or I generated the e-invoice. I forgot to download the QR code, everything. What do I do? There is no option. If you lost your QR code as of now, there is no option to download it again. As I said, the IRP portal will have the data only for 24 hours. Like if you log in today, you will see the data of yesterday or data generated today. After that, you will not find the data on the IRP portal to download it. You forgot to download or downloaded, it got accidentally deleted, you did not save it. What happens next? Gone. What happens next is GOK, got only saved. So to augment that, GSTN is coming with a method to download the IRP data. So GSTN has the data. Right now it has not exposed it publicly to the supplier or the recipient. They are finding a method to get that data. But however, they are very clear that you cannot use the IRP or the GSTN as your data repository systems. So they said they will find a methodology to give you for a limited time. So that is what the government is going to do. Second, I have to cancel the invoice within 24 hours. Like error is human, most likely you have made a sale to Radhika madam, but by mistake the accountant while typing Radhika Verma, whatever, my name got selected, invoice has been printed on my name, invoice generated, and only when an email came to me automatically, then I said, look, you, this is something came by mistake. Then accountant realized this mistake or internal audit happened 15 days, 1 month later, the cancellation time is over. And this is again common mistake that happens. So you have to find a way to close the open invoices within 24 hours for cancellation. After that, you have to cancel it on the GSTN portal. Okay, I'll go ahead and cancel. What is the issue in it? The issue there is you will not remember that you have to cancel it on the GSTN portal. Like I have shown you, the filing process is like next file, because when you logged in, all the invoices are there. Okay, there are 400, you don't even know which to touch. Okay, upload, chalo baad mein dekhenge. So that is a good, we have a very humorous attitude, jab aayega tab dekhenge. So this is again issue I have been noticing, that they cancel it, they do not cancel it on the IRP portal, they do not cancel it on the government portal also. Now, even though e-invoice is good, I would say that there are issues at the portal side also. There are issues with GSTN to be resolving also. One of the issue is the recipient GSTN is inactive. See, I am making a sale. I don't know whether that buyer is active, not active, inactive, whatever. He has buying the goods from me and he is taking. Now he would insist, look, I am active. Here is my GST number. Look at the portal. Now I am the supplier. I am trying to do e-invoice. It says recipient GSTN is inactive. Then he will say, he will print out, no, it is active. So I have to go to NIC portal, enter the GST number, and I have to give a fetch from GST, refresh the data from the GSTN. So I have to do this postman job to make an inactive GSTN to active if it is genuinely active. In my view, from the supplier side, I shouldn't be bothered. If it is inactive, recipient will not get input tax credit or whatever. That machinery provisions of the legal should not be imposed on the business, is my view. Next is the HSN code. We all know from 1st April the HSN code has been made to 6 digits HSN code. Now, most of the businesses are not equipped for 6 digit HSN. Common mistake they do. Okay, my product, chapter 49, I'm dealing with some paper, whatever. I know 4905, but you want 6 digits. Okay, I'll put 2 zeros. I go to the HSN portal. I find, okay, 495000 is there. So I have put all 8 digits as 0 and I have sent it. Portal will accept exactly what is there in HSN code. If you put 2 digits extra, which is not there in the portal, it is not going to accept. It might be a valid custom tariff for you, but it will not be accepted by the portal. This is an issue. Next, GSTN and NIC taxpayer database are not synced. New registration happened. If it is not synced to the NIC database, again, same like inactive GST, it says GST doesn't exist. What should I do? So again, someone has to go do a refresh. After refresh, I have to wait for 24 hours. So this is like killing the time of the business time of a supplier. Sometimes, not all times, sometimes NIC portal goes down. What do I do as a businessman? When an NIC portal goes down, you again have no choice. You have to wait till it come up. NIC has published a health API just to check which API is working, which API is down. But can the business wait? There was, thankfully, whole of 6 months, I would say that there is only one day it was down for 2 hours. But otherwise, it was just intermittent downtime for 5 minutes once in a while. But what happens if I have to really move the vehicle, vehicles are standing on the road, all those things? That is an issue. Next biggest issue I've been noticing is people send a JSON file, sir, I am not able to find an error. It says invalid JSON. I find a lot of low quality developers who are writing this e-invoice generation. There are a lot of proprietary softwares. They write something just to ensure there is a JSON that comes out. It's like some fields the text has to come in double quotes. In some fields, text has to come in a value basis. Some fields has a field limit. All these things are not understood. So people say error in the JSON, error in the JSON. So without understanding what should be the right way of the data interpretation. If you remember that schema, I said there are 133 fields. There are 28 mandatory fields. 90%, trust me, 90% of the developers whom I saw, they fix those 28 fields and they think that the e-invoice system is done. And okay, so you go, it is live. Later, user will start mapping one field. Every time they do some mapping, the error would happen. So if a software is coming cheap, the value or the result of that would also be cheap. So one should be very careful while using a software. Then e-way bill related issues that comes. Can I move the goods without e-invoice? E-way bill portal is allowing me to generate an e-way bill without e-invoice. Can I do it? The answer I would say yes, because penalty under 129 or interception done by the officer, so under 67 or whatever, he would be looking only for e-way bill and an invoice. Now I have not done the e-invoice, but there is a document. So it as of now permitted, but very soon, wherever e-invoice is applicable, e-way bill portal will not allow you to do a direct e-way bill generation without e-invoice. This was actually intended to be go live on 8th January of this year. And when they made it live, suddenly they realized a lot of people do not they have different applications for e-way bill and e-invoice. So people need some time to adopt and merge. So temporarily they have suspended, but anytime they can say that, okay, to generate an e-way bill, e-invoice is must. Cases where e-invoice is not applicable, e-way bill portal will work. Like a tax invoice less than 50,000 rupees, e-way bill is not applicable. Tax invoice more than 50,000 rupees, but it is sold to an unregistered person, e-invoice is not applicable, e-way bill is applicable. Then on the printout of the e-invoice, the e-way bill mode, it will be coming as 1, 2, 3, 4. People don't even know what is this 1, 2, 3, 4. It says, okay, 4 combination of 2 and 3. What is 2? What is 3? Also don't know. And people get worried that, okay, is there something wrong? Most of the softwares, again, I have done around 200 plus implementations and I have reviewed different softwares, audited them. Most of them by default capture whatever is the value in the shipping and dispatch from. They capture whatever in the shipping and dispatch from. If it is blank, they just send the blank data. So portal thinks that, okay, there is something coming. Dispatch and shipping is anyhow optional. So most of the time when you see the e-invoice, the e-way bill portion, it will be showing as 4. But the client will say, sir, I'm only doing a bill from and bill to, which is regular. It should be one regular, but why it is coming? So this is again a configuration issue. One needs to do it. Then there are multi-mode movement. You would be shipping to, say, from your place to rail yard. From rail yard, it went all the way up to Delhi. From there, unloaded and moved into a different cargo. What do I do at that point? So while generating an e-invoice, you have an option to enter the transporter ID and hold that vehicle number, and that which can be updated at a later time. In case of an export, shipping address. So the PIN code is mandatory. PIN code, what do I put in a foreign buyers? You have to put 9999 and 99. Now, the same data, as I said, the SSC, the developers copy from whatever bill to bill from to ship to dispatch from also. But when it coming to ship to, I am shipping it to the port. From port, it is going on the vessel. For the e-way bill, I need to have the port address. In the port address, I have to give the ship to address as a port address. So the PIN code should be of the port. This is again one common errors people do. Then in e-invoice, in case of SKD and a CKD, so I am moving the goods in either a semi knockdown or a complete knockdown. Invoice is one, but I need, say, 10 lorries to ship the material, either owing to the quantity, size, whatever. I am doing the movement in 10 vehicles. Now, as per the procedure, first 9 vehicles will be going under delivery challan, with a SKD, CKD giving the reference of the original invoice number. The last invoice, last consignment will go with e-invoice and the material. Again, without understanding this, people try to generate an e-invoice for all the 9 consignments and one more e-invoice for the 10th consignment, and get into this confusion. Okay, that data is getting duplicated, or the procedure for multi-mode movement is not given by the portal. Then portal related issues. Sorry, invoice value related issues. See, I issue a credit note and a debit note for a differential tax. Technically, from the law perspective, I can issue a credit note. I've sold a product 1000 rupees. The rate of tax is 18%. By mistake, I charge 12%. What should I do? I should issue a debit note for the differential 6%. Can I do an e-invoice for the 6%? Answer is no, because there is no 6% drop down. Likewise with the credit note. So the way I have to do is, I have to cancel the original invoice. Time limit cancellation is over. Okay, you have to issue a credit note for the full invoice and raise a debit note for the revised invoice. So this is a route one has to adopt. Next, there is a taxable value which is different from transaction value. I am making a supply to my own sister concern. So I am sending the goods, selling the goods to them at 100 rupees. But however, the open market value is 120. I will put 120 in the taxable value. But how do I do this in the e-invoice portal? Under the e-invoice portal, you do not have an option to enter separate transaction value and taxable value. Original schema has this field, but NIC while implementing, they missed this. So there are again errors from NIC side also. So the way you have to find a workout saying that, okay, I will put the taxable value as 120 rupees, compute the tax and give 20 rupees as a discount at the invoice level. Or a reverse. Invoice value is 100, taxable value is say 67, real estate case. In those situations, you still have to find a way to give a discount in the invoice level and compute the taxable value. So I will put 100 rupees, the first line value, 37 rupees discount. So I will derive the taxable value as 67, compute tax for 67, again add other charges in the invoice level as 33 rupees. Again, I will make it. So one has to learn how to conduct the business transactions in line with the schema. Then capturing of TCS in the invoice. So I might have Kerala Food Cess, I might have TCS, I might have rounding off. So something which do not participate into the tax calculation, I have all these charges. Where can I list them? There is no provision which is given in the law, in the schema, to accommodate all this. So you have to combine all of them, put it under other charges. So an invoice printed on the portal will look different, invoice given by you will look different. So initially people were like very stubborn and adamant, no, management says that you should get the invoice only in this way. But later they realized that even on the GEPP tool there is no facility. That's when they realized, okay, the schema itself is wrong. I have additional line items which are participating in the tax, like transportation, packing charges, insurance, various other things. Now, what should be the HSN for this? What should be the rate of tax? So should I go with section 8 composite supply and apply the HSN of the principal item, or these are additional line items? Should I apply the HSN of the individual respective service lines and with the rate of tax to be chosen from this? So there is no guidance given under the law. In my view, both the HSN and the tax rate should be of the product that you have been giving. So people also ask the question that, okay, I have multiple products, what do I choose? So choose the principal product. So in a normal way, before the e-invoice was there, how you are reporting it for the GSTR1, apply that process and adopt it for the e-invoice. There was one small technical issue. There is no change in invoice value, no change in the product, everything. Name got wrongly printed. Instead of Radhika Verma, it was Venugopal got printed. I just want to cancel it, use the same invoice number and issue to Radhika ma'am. Answer is no. Once you cancel an invoice, it gets reserved. You cannot reuse that invoice. So these are all these points which I am discussing. They are not emerging from the law. These are emerging out of the practically when you implement the e-invoice. These are the issues that come up while you implement the e-invoice. Then there are issues at the NIC portal level. So or the JSON schema level. What are the issues at the schema level? Pin code validations. Sometimes there are very few pin code wrongly captured in the portal. Over the time they have been correcting it. So but there were initially, so there were too many invoices were rejected because of mismatch in the pin code. Later government said, okay, the way they have done is they have tagged the pin codes to the state, and then they have corrected. They'll say we will validate first 3 digits pin code whether it is fitting in that state or not. Even there some issues were there, they are now resolving it. But one thing which is still not resolved is between one pin code to another pin code, the distance is auto calculated. It is not happening in all the cases. I would say only 70% of the cases it is automated. Whenever you get an error, again you have to correct the JSON, you have to manually pass the distance. Otherwise the distance is auto calculated. NIC calculates the distance and issues the e-way bill type. Then we know rule 46 has the invoice number restriction. It should only be a 16 digits and it should be hyphen slash everything. But they have applied this restriction to purchase order also. Purchase order is my internal document. I might have some 20 digits. I might have some other characters. Technically, they should not have applied this. Then these additional values attributes. So there are a lot of additional values which they have given. But all the additional values are not fitting, which is a commercial tax invoice. So the schema has to be further remodified to really look like a commercial tax invoice. So the schema versioning change that did not happen from the day it has come, nor a discussion has been brought in to say that, okay, what are the changes that needs to happen. Warranty date. Again, this was very much not required. See, a supplier can today sell, he can sell, say, Maruti vehicle, 15 years he will say warranty. Portal should not say that, no, you cannot have a 15 years, you cannot have warranty date beyond 2029. That is ridiculous. So these are the restrictions that they have put in. HSN validation. The HSN which is there in the CVIC portal for the customs is not same as GST and again not same as NIC. So you have to manually keep syncing. While generating the e-invoice, you have to follow whatever is the HSN which is present in the NIC portal. Again, in the NIC portal, between the trial version e-invoice trial and e-invoice real, both are different. So these are the unwanted issues which are brought in by the portal or the schema. So one should be aware that, okay, these things happen, and find ways to conduct business and carry on their life. So friends, these are the various aspects that I intend to cover on the subject, legal issues and the technical issues. So if you have any questions, let's discuss the questions before we conclude. There's one question from Shriram K. An entity is having turnover less than 50 crores from inception of GST. Financial year 21-22, in the month of August, the aggregate turnover crossed 50 crores. Is e-invoice applicable from September of 21, or is it applicable from April of the next financial year? Because the word used is the 50 crores in the preceding financial year. So Sriram is of the view that it should be applicable from the financial year 22-23. I would agree that it would be applicable from financial year 22-23 and not during the year. However, if during the year they said exceeding 25 crores, say from 1st October, then again these positions would change. Any other questions? By the way, on the presentation side, this is all I have to explain, and both various issues. I would be sharing the presentation copy to the Radhika ma'am and the organizers, so like you can find a way to collect it. So with this, I conclude my session, and I thank the CTC and Hyderabad chapter for giving an opportunity to share my views. And if you still have any question, here is my email ID. Feel free to reach to me. Over to the host and any questions there are.
Thank you, Venugopal ji. Indeed, it was a well spent Saturday morning by deep diving into a technical session on GST. I think you have clarified a lot of common errors and myths on e-invoicing. And I'm sure the participants would be able to address a lot of practical issues which are asked by the clients based on this session. So in case any questions, we can take it up now, or I would over to Ravi for the vote of thanks. Any questions, you can please put it in the chat box.
There's one more question from Sriram. What would be the challenge if e-invoice is raised for April post May 11th? Sriram, if an e-invoice is raised in post May 11th, I would say the challenge wouldn't be from May 11th. Look at from your GSTR1 filing for April. Till you file your GSTR1 for April, as long as that window is open, the e-invoice data automatically travel to GSTR1. If you file your April, data travels to the GSTN portal, but it doesn't get recorded. So you have to manually record. And one other important point I missed is GSTN very beautifully has washed off their hands, saying that there is a mismatch in the data of what you have generated in the e-invoice portal, what I have recorded in the GSTR1. I am incapable of doing a reconciliation. So before filing the return, you please do the reconciliation and do it. So made a disclaimer, which is again very bad of them. They should have done that. These are the records. We could not push it for various reasons, and these are the invoices posted. They could have given a segregation of that at least, but without that, some data is posted, some data is not posted, and the recipient might feel that, okay, looks like the supplier is doing some golmaal, because some items are appearing within the 2A with the IRN, some are not appearing without the IRN. So this is again little bad on the GSTN part, is what I feel.
All right, I think thank you, Venuji, for clarifying that one last doubt. Ravi, over to you for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Radhika. I would first like to thank Mr. Venugopal for taking out time out of his precious schedule and enlightening us this morning with all his wisdom on e-invoicing, the intricacies, the technical aspects, the legal aspects. It has been a wonderful session to say the least. I'm sure the participants would agree with me. And I would also like to thank the participants for joining us on a Saturday morning and ensuring the success of the session. With this, I would just like to inform everyone that CTC Hyderabad Study Group is coming up with more innovative programs in the month to come. So please stay tuned and keep following the group for the other things. Thank you so much, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you in future sessions. Thank you so much, Venuji, once again for all your effort.
Thank you, Mr. Venu.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. See you.
See you. Bye.